this is, hold on a minute. Yes. Who is this? The Bon Appetit magazine? Listen, I told you guys before, I don't have time for any interviews or a magazine spread. No, I know, but I don't understand why it's such a big damn deal when I make something new. No, I told you guys, no, I just don't have time for this. Bye. Sorry about that. Where was I? Oh, that's right. This is Raspberry Streusel Cheesecake. Today on chocolate. Hold on. Yes. Food Network. Listen, stop harassing me. Okay, so when it comes to your crust for cheesecake, you have tons of options. I do definitely suggest that you use a springform pan. It's definitely worth buying one of these. This is a 10-inch pan here, so this recipe is going to make a rather large cheesecake. But there's these come in different sizes, and I'm assuming you already know that, but I did want to touch base on the different options of crusts that you can use for a cheesecake. Now, I'm opting for the classic version with the graham cracker crust with the New York cheesecake. I think that that's the classic, definitely my favorite, but people will grind up cookies. You know, you could use any kind of cookie you like. Some people use a sponge cake base. There's all different kinds of ways you can find out there to do the crust for your cheesecake. And when it comes to graham cracker crusts, there's options there too. You could just go ahead and buy one of those little Nabisco pre-made crusts. That's the easy, lazy way of doing it. Although if you're using this recipe, you probably want to buy maybe 3 of those because they're really small. But the other thing you can do is just buy a box of graham crackers pre-made. You can get organic ones. I've noticed those are available now. You know, and just grind those up into your crust. Or you can opt to make your own graham crackers. Yes, you can make these. I've made these before. If you want to see me make these, you can go to my original New York cheesecake video I did about a year ago with the sour cherry compote, where I show you how I make these. But today, in the interest of time, I'm just going to give you the recipe for the graham cracker crust, and then we'll get this crust together and start on our batter. So this is for a 10-inch, a large cheesecake pan like this. I'm using 14 ounces of homemade graham crackers, and you're going to need a food processor for this, or you can also just put the graham crackers in a bowl and use the back of a French pin, rolling pin. You can roll them out on the counter in a plastic, in one of those Ziploc bags. That's another easy way of doing it. I like doing it with the food processor so I can drizzle in melted butter. So the first thing I'm going to do is just break these up into this bowl of a food processor here. And this is a lot of graham crackers. I may have to do this in 2 different batches. I'm not sure. Just crumble them up so it can be a little easier for your food processor to grind these. No, I think I can actually get this whole amount in here. A lot of graham crackers we got happening here. And these homemade ones taste amazing, so I highly suggest give the recipe a try. I'll put it down in the description box. They are worth making. You'll definitely get a higher quality cheesecake with this recipe. Now to that, I'm adding here, so that's 14 ounces of the graham crackers, and then to that I'm adding 6 ounces of brown sugar and about an ounce or so of granulated sugar in there as well. I like to use the brown sugar because I think it makes your crust a little more moist. It's not as sweet, but I think it kind of makes your crust a little softer when you're working your fork through a slice of cheesecake. So I'm going to put this in here. And now before I put the melted butter in here, I'm going to process this. Start with pulsing it. And then you just want to work this to a fairly fine-ish crumb. Doesn't have to be powder, but you know, you don't want a lot of lumps in there. A little bit's okay. Three ounces of unsalted European style butter. And so you can either just put this in here, or I think I'm going to use my feed tube and do it that way. So then what you want to look for is you want to look for it to kind of hold its shape, squeeze some together, and you should be able to, you know, hold your shape with that because it has to hold up in the pan. So, and then that's it. That's all you need to do. Just dump that into a bowl, and we'll shape this into our crust here in a little bit. So this graham cracker recipe gave us 1 pound, 8 ounces of finished graham cracker crumbs. And now we're going to fashion this crust into this pan. I personally think it's worthwhile to butter and a parchment round on the bottom. I feel like the crust will release a little easier. Even though this is a springform pan, I would take the time to do that anyhow. That's just how I do it. So now all you need to do is just start laying this in here. And the name of the game with this graham cracker crust is try to get an even layer. That's what you want. Not too thick, not too thin. I don't really know if this is going to take all of these crumbs, but I do like, myself personally, another preference is I like to give my cheesecakes a full crust all the way towards the top of the cheesecake pan. Some people just like to put it on the bottom. It's easier that way, a lot easier, but I like the textural difference between the creamy cheesecake filling and the taste of the graham cracker crumbs. So I'm doing a full crust on mine. So this should take most of this 1.5 pounds of crumbs. So just lay these in here evenly. So then once you have a layer on the bottom, then the easiest way to do this is to use, now I actually have this measuring cup that I purposefully broke the handle off of. It's just a cheap little measuring cup. And I think this is the perfect implement to sort of push your crumbs up to the side. So then as soon as you have a nice even crust, then stick this in about a 325 degree oven for maybe 10 or 12 minutes just to set up. Make sure you don't burn it. Keep a close watch on it. And then set that to the side and we can start on the cheesecake batter itself. Okay, so before you can start mixing your cheesecake batter, you should take care of the other two little components here that you need for this recipe. And that's just some raspberry puree. And all I did there was I just took some frozen raspberries and cooked it down with a little sugar, cornstarch, lemon juice, and just passed it through a strainer to get all the seeds and the nasty bits out, because you want a smooth puree. Nice, tangy, beautiful color puree there. And the recipes, everything for all this stuff is down in the description box. But the other little component that you're going to want here is just mix together by hand a little bowl of cinnamon streusel. And I went kind of light on the streusel here. It's just flour, brown sugar, granulated sugar, cinnamon, and a stick of unsalted butter. And just kind of work that together with your hands into a nice little crumble. And that's just going to go on top. And then the last thing you'll need, which I'll just show you later, is just 8 ounces of white chocolate that we're going to melt on top. So just work this streusel together and get your raspberry puree. This was a 10-ounce bag of the frozen organic raspberries. You can use fresh, of course. And the other thing you could do if you didn't feel like making your own raspberry puree, of course, is you could just buy some good quality raspberry jelly or jam. You know, just get seedless for this because you want it smooth. Now that we have all of our mise en place done and everything is weighed out and we have our different components done, now we can start to put this cheesecake batter together. Cheesecakes, yes, there's not that many ingredients, and it is simple, seemingly simple, but it can be challenging as well. There's some tips and tricks along the way that I can give you that will hopefully help you out. So the first thing is, there's a lot of controversy out there online that I see about, you know, cheesecakes to bake in a water bath or not. I say yes, water bath is going to give you a better texture and a better, more even cook on your cheesecake every single time. I always use a water bath. There's a number of reasons why this is my preferred method, and that's because it will help your cheesecake to set up evenly and cooked evenly throughout. And the other thing is, I think that it will definitely prevent any cracks from forming. So just use filtered water, unless you don't mind bathing your cheesecake in that fine toxic chlorine mist. Use filtered water and bring it to the boil before you pour it into the pan. Okay, and also if you're using a springform pan, and I think you should, definitely put a double layer of heavy-duty aluminum foil the whole way around the pan so that the water can't seep up into your crust and destroy all of your efforts. So once you have all that done, just put that to the side, and now we can finally work on this cheesecake batter. And now I definitely will say that as far as cheesecake goes, cheesecake batter, yes, you can use one of those handheld mixer units. Personally, I think that a stand mixer, this is a job for a stand mixer. It's just kind of my opinion about this. It makes your life a hell of a lot easier using a stand mixer. Paddle attachment. And now the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put room temperature. All your ingredients must be at complete room temperature, soft. I've had this cream cheese out all night on the counter so that it would soften up perfectly. If you don't do that, you are going to have lumps, and your cheesecake batter is going to be extremely difficult to bring together. So just leave it out on the counter overnight. And so for this size cheesecake, I think I'm using 2.5 pounds here. And now to that, I'm going to add sugar, granulated sugar, and cornstarch in there. It's just a couple of ounces of cornstarch in there to help the batter set properly. You can leave it out, however, I just feel like it has a place in this batter, and it will help your cheesecake set up properly. So I just whisk the sugar and the cornstarch together. This will stop the cornstarch from creating any potential lumps in your batter. So go ahead and add that over top of the cream cheese. I have a little bit of sea salt there, and some full-fat sour cream that goes into. Obviously, you can do this all in stages. You don't have to put it all in like this, but I just find that the easiest way for me to make a cheesecake batter like this is to put everything except for the eggs in, because you want to add your eggs carefully into your cheesecake batter, and very slowly. Into that is going the juice of 1 organic lemon in there, seeded of course, and the zest. Last but not least, I'm going to put a tablespoon, a full tablespoon of vanilla bean paste in here. You can also scrape a vanilla bean in there to get a beautiful flavor. Cheesecake loves vanilla, so does raspberry, so this will go very nicely in this cheesecake. Okay, so once you have everything in the bowl, then you want to put it back on the mixer and start this with your paddle attachment. Now you want to mix this very thoroughly. It's going to probably take 7-8 minutes before we add the eggs. Mix it on slow. You do not want to whip in any air into this cheesecake batter. You're trying to keep it very smooth, so low and steady as you go here. And another thing is, it's very, very important that you stop and scrape down as you're mixing. And as I say, keep it on low. And don't try to rush this. You'll be rewarded. Meanwhile, if you haven't done it already, you should have already done this, but have 5 eggs for this size batter. I'm using 5 eggs and 2 extra yolks. These are organic, free-range eggs, and I whisk them up. And we're going to add these, after this is completely smooth, we're going to add this very slowly into this cheesecake batter. Okay, so after about 5 or 6 minutes here, I've got a very smooth, nice, glossy cream cheese batter. It doesn't have a bunch of air beat into it. It's very smooth and lump-free, and I've scraped it down several times. So now on low speed, I'm going to start adding these beaten eggs into here, a little bit at a time. And again, you will have to stop and scrape down a few times to incorporate these eggs in here. Okay, so once you have all of those eggs incorporated in there, then you can take this off of the stand mixer and just make sure everything is nice and smooth and there's no cream cheese stuck on the bottom of your mixing bowl. And it should look like that, completely smooth and lump-free. And now you can fill your prepared crust. And so now this is the fun part. You can get a little creative. I'm going to put a little bit of a swirl design into this. So just kind of put this raspberry puree in a bit of a haphazard pattern. Some of it will sink down, some of it will stay on top. Then I'm going to take a chopstick here and carefully swirl this, and this will just make it look a little more appealing and appetizing when you cut into it. So as I believe I mentioned, it's definitely a better idea to use boiling hot water in here. You don't want to be putting cold water in here, just simply because then what's going to happen is it's going to take a lot longer for your cheesecake to bake, which can dry it out because the water has to heat up first. So make sure you're getting your water bath hot. So in an effort to not spill this water all over my beautiful cheesecake, I'm going to try using a large ladle here to carefully Spoon this boiling hot water into this cheesecake. And I would say you don't need to fill this pan for sure. You only need to come up about halfway on the cheesecake pan. And now just carefully put this in. I have my oven set at 300 degrees, and that's just because it's convection. I like really low and slow. Okay, so now our cheesecake is about 3/4 of the way baked, and the top can now support the weight of these tasty little streusel crumbs. So I've added the streusel to the top, and now we're going to finish baking this custard all the way. Okay, so this size, 10-inch size of deep cheesecake ended up taking a long time in the oven till it reached around 150. I let it go a little bit longer because of the raspberry in it. And then I'm cutting the heat now, and I'm going to just leave it in the oven till it reaches room temperature. And I'm going to put a oven mitt in the door so that there's a little gap there. And just let this go all the way until room temperature, and then wrap it real well, real tight, and then this has to set overnight in the refrigerator before you can cut into this. So just white chocolate ganache to garnish. So now we're going to give this a try, and I'm going to let you know what I think. I've been dying to try this, and so yeah, let's dive right in here. Yeah, just an amazing creamy texture, very nice. The cheesecake came out perfectly cooked. It's not overcooked. It's very creamy and goes extremely well with that raspberry puree that we made and the white chocolate. The cinnamon streusel adds another dimension to it. This cheesecake is definitely a keeper. It's one you want to write the recipe down for. I worked really hard on coming up with this formula to try to get the right texture and appearance to the dessert. I think it's an amazing cheesecake. Definitely with the textural differences of the streusel and the raspberry puree, a bit different than a lot of cheesecakes out there. So there you have it, another restaurant quality gourmet dessert recipe. I hope you guys will give it a try for your friends and family. And don't forget, if you don't feel like going through the efforts, you can always purchase one of these beautiful cheesecakes from me if you're local to the Hershey, Harrisburg, Lancaster area. Consider supporting the channel at chocolateavenue.shop. So, okay, thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.